Welcome to the Massive Impact Show. I'm your host, Taylor Reed. With me, I've got my co-host, Nathan Fort. Today we have a very special guest, Marco Champion. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the owner, founder, and CEO of Champion Social, and just an all-around awesome guy. Marco, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
How are you feeling?
Amazing. We just knocked a couple podcasts out prior to this.
Great.
So we're on a roll.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you're doing now. What is Champion Social? What is your kind of day-to-day like?
A lot of this, right? A lot of filming podcasts, filming content, doing content days. That's kind of like the bulk, like fun part of what I do is doing that.
So you get to hang out with friends and then video all of it, edit it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a nice gig.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I mean, there's like the unfun parts of like the marketing side of things and figure out the numbers and making sure that people are hitting like the projections that we have set, which is like all analytical. And I call it unfun. I mean, I'm good at it, but like I have fun doing the creative stuff because that's kind of where like I shine.
Right.
What's like the goal and purpose of Champion Social? Like, what are you guys trying to do?
We are trying to empower people that are creating an impact. Because there's so many social media companies that will just take on anybody, just for the money, right? I won't take on somebody that gave me $100,000 just because they're gonna give me $100,000. Like, that's not how I roll. Like, that's not what I wanna create. But I find people that I think are gonna create a massive impact, no pun intended.
Right.
Literally no pun intended, I just said that. Massive impact in their industry. And they're gonna do something that's gonna like impact so many people in a positive way. That like lights me up. I'm like, I wanna help fuel that. I wanna put like gas in the fire and see that blow up.
So you've probably talked to a lot of different people and companies that want to work with you. What are some big indicators from your perspective that, hey, these people are going to make a good impact? They're going to make a big impact. I want them on my team.
Yeah, passion and purpose. Huge, right? Like, are you in love with this, like for actually helping others, or are you just trying to get money? Right? There's so many companies out there like, oh yeah, they tell me about their company, all they're talking about is their money. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I just want to sell a product.
But how's it helping people? How's it changing people's lives, right? Like, I figure out like if they're passionate about it, and then what's the purpose behind it. And if those two are pretty much on point, then kind of gives me an indication I should help them.
Yeah.
How do you measure passion? Because I think, we hear that a lot, we say that a lot, like you gotta be passionate, you gotta chase your dreams. How do you measure that and be like, okay, this is passionate enough, or I'm passionate enough about my business?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's like enough, right? I feel like passion is passion, whether you have 1% or 100% of it. Like, there's a certain pull factor, right? Like, when you're not passionate, you're pushing, right? You're pushing so you can hit a goal, you're pushing so you can accumulate money. But when you're passionate about something, you're being pulled to that. You're being pulled to wake up early, you're being pulled to work hard. And so like, it can be 1%, but it creates a whole different type of dynamic when you're working.
Right. And when you talk to these entrepreneurs, like, how does that passion come out? What are you looking for that like triggers you like, yeah, that's it?
I can see it typically before I even talk to them, right? When I do like research on like if they submit a form on our website and I'm seeing like their social media, or I'm like looking at other pieces of video or other interviews, or just Google searching them, and like they're being interviewed by like Forbes or whatever it may be, and I can just read their articles. I can kind of see it in there, like, right? Like what is it that drives them? Like, what's it that kind of sparks that fire within them?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. How did you get started into this? Like, did you always know you wanted to be a digital marketer, or did you fall into it?
I fell into it. I always wanted to be a skateboarder. Like, that's kind of been my dream since I was younger, be a pro skateboarder. And I had a huge life story, which kind of shifted me in a direction of pursuing entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was already kind of an entrepreneur even before that shift. I was like buying and selling things, and I was kind of always like thinking about that as a fun thing to do, like a creative thing to do. So yeah, I fell into it. I realized like growing up, there's probably only a certain amount of skills that I need to really master and focus on. One of them was sales. I'm like, okay, this can apply to anything, right? If I get good at sales, I can, no matter what I choose I want to do when I'm older, I'll be good at. And the second thing I started thinking about, I'm like, okay, what's something that's like now, that's happening now, that's gonna really like be a skill that I can use for multiple different reasons as well. And social media was like, it was huge. I was building a brand, Motive. And it was so funny. I built the brand, and like I did like 3 to 6 months worth of work, and I built the website and all that. And as soon as I clicked launch, I thought a bunch of sales are gonna come in, of course, right? I'm just like,
yeah.
Okay, any minute now. Like a day later, I'm like, okay, it's cool, it's gonna come. 2 days, 3 days, a week pass. I'm like, what's going on, right? Like what am I missing? The whole marketing side of things, right? I'm on social media. And so that kind of started getting me to think about social media and how much it actually impacts a business when you do it right.
Right.
So as a fellow skateboarder, so I grew up skateboarding.
Yeah.
I know something about what it takes to like stick a new trick, right? It's just days and days,
Yep.
sometimes weeks, sometimes months of just relentless practice. You're getting nailed in the shins, you're falling, and I really felt like that whole experience skateboarding kind of gave me a little grit, kind of taught me how to be a hard worker and just not give up on stuff, right? Do you feel like that whole experience growing up skateboarding has helped you in your business, and in what ways can you see right now in your business that you can kind of thank yourself for being involved in skateboarding?
Yeah. I'm actually writing a book right now called The Real Life Grind.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm like in the last chapter. I'm interviewing pro skaters that have been in successful entrepreneurship endeavors, and
I was
applies.
going to suggest you write a book.
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm glad to hear you.
yeah.
Already got underway.
It applies so much. It's so much. Number one thing is just like never giving up, right? If you want a trick or if you want to land something, kick flip, tray flip, whatever it is in skateboarding, like you visualize it first, right? And it's kind of like the first step in entrepreneurship, right? You got to kind of visualize where you want to go. What's the things you want to achieve? And once you figure that out, then it's just like never quit until it happens, right? You're going to fall a bunch of times. You're going to fail. It's going to hurt like heck. Sometimes you might even end up in the hospital. But if you never quit, you'll land the trick, right? Just like in business. Like if you never quit, you're going to succeed eventually.
I've noticed that. I could never stick a trick if I couldn't see myself doing it in my mind.
Yep.
If I just couldn't see it, I couldn't see how the board was rotating, spinning, and how it was going to land. If I couldn't see it, there's no way I could do it.
Yep.
And man, what a great lesson. Because that's how business works, right? If you really can't see your business being a success, there's no way you're going to make it successful.
Right.
So you got to vision. So do you find yourself kind of using those principles to kind of coach and mentor some of your clients?
Yeah, and I feel like as an athlete, it applies in a lot of sports, right? Whether you're in football, basketball, there's just like this grit that you get from being an athlete that applies to entrepreneurship. Skateboarding in itself, though, it's very similar to it, as in it's a solo sport. And in entrepreneurship, it's you really that is like, you might have like partners and employees and all these other people that are in the business, but at the end of the day, no one's gonna work as hard in your business as you, right? No one's gonna put it in the direction that you wanted to go other than you. Same thing with skateboarding. There's nobody else telling you what you should do. You're the one choosing the trick. You're the one choosing the line. You're the one choosing what you wanna do. So yeah.
I think I heard Michael Phelps before some of his meets, he would visualize the entire meet, every stroke. He'd fill the water in between his hands and feet, and he just visualized the entire thing.
So
Visualization's huge.
For those that might not, resonate as well with, all the sports analogies like all of us are into, right? How do you get people that are interested in entrepreneurship to understand that principle of visualization and believing in themselves ahead of time if they haven't had that experience in sports or something like that?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll ask is what's their motive, right?
Yeah.
Why are they interested in entrepreneurship? Is it because everybody else is and you want to make money?
Right.
Because that's not going to last.
Right.
When you're hit with something really hard in business, that why is not going to pull you through that.
Right.
Right. So maybe really rethink why you want to get into it in the first place.
It's got to be a massive why.
It's got to be a massive why, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to change the course of your family's history forever? It's pretty massive, right?
Absolutely. And when you got into the space, was there a lot of competition? Were you early to it? Like what was it like with peers in the industry?
For entrepreneurship or for social media?
For the social media.
Well, for social media, honestly, for anything that I do, I really don't even look at the competition. I really don't. I look at what's out there and I try to innovate on top of that. How can I make this better?
Right.
But I don't focus on them because I really don't care. The only thing I care about is what did I do yesterday? How can I be better today? And I think if I keep my focus on that, I'll just continue progressing. Because I feel that if I'm thinking about competition and all that, it starts taking away time away from me being better myself.
Right.
And I think it has its merit, understanding what's in the marketplace, understanding how people are differentiating themselves, and what we can use that we like and what we can use that we don't, and remove it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was going to say is sometimes focusing on competition and focusing on everybody else can become this toxic cycle for entrepreneurs, where they're too wrapped up in what everybody else is doing. When you can kind of assess those things quickly and then make your own plan and start taking action on it, that's always going to beat out sitting there trying to analyze what all the competition's doing all the time, because in the end, those that take the largest amount of action are the ones that win.
Yeah.
That's
And
how it always is.
Amazon actually says focus on your customers, not your competition.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need a bunch of data to know that you're doing something incorrectly.
True.
Right? And so if you start copying somebody too early before there's data to show that what they're doing is actually wrong,
Right.
you might be following them down the same wrong road, right?
Might as well run your own race, right?
Right.
So let's go back to Marco Champion as a kid, right? Let's go back to where it all started. Tell us about your upbringing, your family life. Like where did it all start?
Well, my name was Marco Chavez growing up, so I'm Mexican. I grew up in San Diego, like South San Diego, close to the border. I have family right across in Mexico. I didn't grow up like with a lot of money, but I didn't grow up super broke either. Like we weren't on the street. I still had a roof over my head and I still had clothes on my back, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
My dad was a really good salesperson. Like I think that's probably where I got some of that. He was always like in dealerships, selling cars, selling houses. Like he was kind of just moving around, but like he was always, he told me like a good salesperson will never go hungry, right?
It's true.
And it stuck with me. I'm like,
It's wise.
Yeah. So I mean, I grew up, my parents divorced when I was young, when I was like 3-4 years old. So I had like this moving back and forth from my parents type of thing, which honestly like it impacted me a lot like later on in life, because I just didn't want to be like tossed back and forth. Like I'm possessed with something. So like that actually growing up now, like now I'm getting as an adult thinking about maybe having kids in the next like 5-7 years. I never want that to happen. So I want to make sure that, you know, that they understand like how much impact is going to be on the kid when you're going through stuff, you know, as a husband and wife.
Right.
So that happened like growing up. So when I was in my teenage years, I kind of just found, you know, I did a bunch of sports, baseball, basketball, football, but I found skateboarding to be like my escape. You know, even if I'm at my mom's or my dad's, I still had a skateboard and I could still go out on the street and just go skate. So I found that as an escape, and you know, I got really, really good at it. It's funny, anything that I did, I wanted to be pro at. I was a baseball player, I'm gonna be a pro baseball player. I'm gonna be the best pro baseball player there is out there. Same thing with all the other sports.
Where do you think you got that from?
I don't know. I think
Not
it's my
everybody has that,
enthusiasm.
you know, not everybody has that.
I just like it.
That kind of drive to be the best at whatever it is they're doing.
I have no idea. I mean,
You think you're born with it? You think you catch it along the way? You think you're influenced by somebody? Or
I definitely wasn't influenced by anybody on that. I don't want to say I'm born with it, because then there's people out there like who can find it, right? They can tap into their inner like champion, right?
Yeah.
Tap into that inner champion and really just come out there and grind harder than, and they haven't been doing that for like the last 5-10 years. So I don't want to say I'm born with it like that, but for me, I feel like, you know, I was very enthusiastic on winning. I just wanted to win because it felt weird losing to me. I just didn't like losing.
Winning
it feels weird to lose.
Yeah, it feels weird to lose.
Winning's a lot more fun than losing.
It is,
turns
yeah.
out.
So it's the next T-shirt. It feels weird to lose.
That's exactly right.
That's
Make a
pretty
note, guys.
Ed Milet, in his last book, you know, the Power of One More. I don't know if you've read it, but he says winning is a lot more fun than fun is fun. And so he says, just try to win in everything, right? And it's cool that you've been able to emulate that from a young age and now bring it into your business life. I kind of want to go back a little bit. Like you said, some of those things impacted you as a child, right? They started to form, you know, ideas early on of what entrepreneurship was, what business was, what lifestyle was, right? What are some of those ideas that you had early on about money and wealth that maybe you've had to work on and change as time goes on?
Well, I think the cool thing is that whenever I asked for something, like they wouldn't give it to me, my parents or my aunts or whoever's watching me, because they didn't have the money to do that, right? They only gave so much. So I realized, okay, if I want this Xbox or whatever it is at the time when I was a kid, I'm gonna have to like make money to do that. And I don't know why working a job never came to mind. I just thought, what can I sell? Like, I literally sold like I sold things.
Your dad programmed you, right? You got good salesman never goes hungry, right?
Yeah. So like, I looked at lamps. I'm like, I'm gonna sell that lamp on Craigslist. Like,
Mom was upset, but
they got upset.
But
they
got the money.
They ended up getting upset. But I ended up like selling, and then I would think about after doing that, I would be on Craigslist. And I started looking at other things on Craigslist. I'm like, oh, this person's selling this Xbox or just giving it away when I know it can sell for $100.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pick it up. It's like $5, $10. This guy's just giving it away. And then I would do that and I'll start flipping. I start making money. And then I ended up buying my own Xbox from selling Xboxes. And then eventually got to the point where I would take an Xbox to a friend that I knew that would hack it and get all the games on it and sell it for hundreds of dollars more because it's a hacked Xbox.
Xbox, he's kidding. He's kidding, Microsoft. That's not.
I hate Microsoft, so I don't really care.
He's a PlayStation guy.
I'm a PlayStation guy now, you know. Bill Gates, sorry, I don't invest in any money that no, I'm not gonna touch it.
That's funny.
That's I mean, you think of how many companies start that way, you know, or even small businesses. There's just a very simple problem that needs to be solved. Like, I just got to get some money to pay for some shoes or an Xbox or whatever.
Yeah.
And you think of kind of you notice the lowest hanging fruit, right? So some of the opportunities that are in closest range.
Right.
And then you start to see what other people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, this is when I'm 13.
You see best practices and you take some ideas from here and there, and you got an efficient business.
Yeah,
at some point.
Like I said, this is when I'm 13, so I'm not even thinking about business. I don't even know I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know what that word means, right? I'm just thinking, how can I pay for this? And I didn't even think about entrepreneurship until like after 17 years old. And so that's the transition that I had. Because I always think it was being a pro skater. I wanted to be a pro skater, just skate from the ages of 12 to 15. That was my time. And then I accumulated some sponsorships, and I was heading in that direction for sure.
Do you think, so I have this problem where, you know, maybe it's a problem, maybe it's not, but I have this thing where I get all in on everything I do, right? Similar to what you're describing, like wanted to be a pro baller, wanted to be a pro snowboarder, wanted to be, you know, whatever it was I was doing at the time, whatever I was passionate about. To the outside, a lot of people think that that's damaging, that like you're lying to yourself or whatever, but for me it was always just like the passion that kept me driving forward. How do you describe that to like young entrepreneurs that maybe have a lot of naysayers around them that are telling them to lower their expectations or lower your standards, or like, you know, just go to college or just go the safe route, right? How do you talk to those younger entrepreneurs about that and you know, describe what that's like?
I would say two things. One, you can do anything you set your mind to, right? If you want to be a pro snowboarder, if you want to be whatever it is, you can do it. Right, it's possible. The fact that you are even thinking about it makes it a possibility. And then two, if majority of people are saying don't do it, like lower your expectations, look at the people who have already done it, and then listen out to what they're saying. Right? They probably have a different explanation to the people around you who have probably tried to do the things that they wanted to do, but gave up in the process and are now giving you that type of advice.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like, you know, why not me, right?
Right.
Like if not me, then who? Like who better to have success? So, no, that's awesome. What was your first like inkling that you were going to be successful? Like you were going to make a lot of money, that you were going to have a really strong performing business?
So it was after my accident, and I started Motive.
Mm-hmm. And
when I started Motive, I thought this is going to make me millions of dollars. I was just delusional.
Yeah.
And like my mom was like, you're gonna make millions of dollars selling t-shirts? I'm like,
we love our moms.
I'm like,
they believe
I
us.
love my mom. I love my mom to death. She's helped me. She's been like one of my number one supporters.
Yeah.
But this is what she said.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, I am. But it got me thinking like, wait, that kind of sounds funny. But yeah, that was like, you know, in the very beginning, I was like, I'm gonna make millions of dollars. And it's not until like I got into marketing and social media that actually made it like possible. Before that, it was just like branding and creating a business, sales, like all the things that are like kind of were preliminary to scaling.
So what happened with that pivot? I mean, how'd you pivot from Motive, the skateboard company, to social media and marketing? Was there an event, or did you wake up one morning? What happened?
Yeah, well, I was sponsored in skateboarding by local skate shops, and I was skateboarding down a hill on Halloween night. It was 2011. I was 15 years old, and I hit a crack in the sidewalk, and it flew me into the street. And as soon as I hit the street, I knew there was cars coming. There was lots of cars, like it's a pretty fast street. So I look up, and there's already a tire coming from my face.
Holy cow.
And I had like a split second. I tried my thought process, roll in the middle of the car so I don't get hit by tires. But I only had a chance to move my head. I didn't even get a chance to move my body. And so the car went right over my shoulder. And then it stopped, going like, what the heck is this? You know, that I'm on. My friend's on a bike, like right across the street going, keep going, like you're on my friend. The car is just stationary on my shoulder. And then,
wow.
Then the car keeps going, thinking it ran over a bike or a skateboard or something, and tries to flee. Like, so now I'm stuck in the middle of the car with my hips pinned from the bottom of the concrete to the bottom of the car, bottom of the car, and just being dragged. like across the street, I don't know, like 15, 20 feet. And my friend comes, pounds the window, like, stop, 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 right? And the car stops, and now I'm stuck under the car, bleeding out, like just on the brink of death. I had like blood gushing out of my head. Broke my pelvis. My legs were like one longer than the other. My spine was hurt. Something I probably never even said on a podcast, like my nuts were hurting so bad because my legs were just squishing them that. So I was just screaming like in pain. And I was about to pass out. I was like closing my eyes, and my friend's like, no, stop. Like, open your eyes, keep your eyes open. And that's the moment that I realized I was fighting for my life.
Crazy.
Yeah.
At what moment after this event did you realize like that it was time for a pivot?
Well, I mean, right after, my family's like very religious, like Catholic. Mm-hmm. And so I told my grandma, which I knew she was super like scared about what's going on in the hospital. The doctors are saying I might not make it out alive on the first surgery. After the first surgery, they said I would never walk again and I would be stuck in a wheelchair. And I told my grandma, like, hey, like, I spoke to Jesus, like, I'm gonna be okay. And I was delusional, and I had like all this medicine and stuff like that, but I told her, and she was so inspired. She went out and told like all of the churches, like in Rome, they were freaking praying for me. They were praying for me all around the world. Wow. And I was like, damn, that had to have been helping me at least a little bit, because the power of prayers is powerful. And so after that, I got back, home. About a month in the hospital later, I'm in a wheelchair. I recover. About 3 to 6 months later, I start learning how to walk again. About a year later, I'm kind of going back to normal. So I'm going back to school now, in high school. And at the time, when I got hit by a car, I started becoming cool. Like, I was like, I was going to Halloween to meet up with girls. I mean, it was my first time, like sophomore year, to go meet up with girls.
You're the kid that got ran over.
But then now I got ran over, and I come back to school, and I haven't ate food, so I lost like 40 pounds, right? I took a bunch of painkillers, and I haven't seen sunlight, so I'm all white and pale. I broke out on my face because all the painkillers I was taking. I looked crazy. So when I got back to school, people were like, looking at me like, oh shit, like they don't even want to look at me. And being in high school, you're like, it's all about judging, right? Like you judge yourself the most in high school. Yeah. So I slipped into depression, like from there. I was like, I'm not gonna be a pro skater. Everyone's looking at me like this. I'm not. Obviously, the girls I talked to, they're like gone, and I got super, super sad. And from the depression, I was kind of just, I thought about suicide a couple of times, as a kid, like 17 years old, and I was so lucky to find meditation. I'm YouTube searching because the doctor said I would never walk, but I'm walking, so that always kind of carried in me. I was like, why am I able to walk? Why was I able to do it if the doctor said I couldn't? So I started diving into like mindset, and I found how powerful your mind is, and I said, if you meditate, it strengthens the mind. So it can't hurt. So I started meditating, and I realized how great it feels, because I was in depression, and when I meditated, depression, like, I separated from the depression. And I was like, oh wow, this feels great. And so I started meditating like 6 hours a day for like 7 months straight, like every day, because I didn't want to be sad. It just felt great. And then after that, I got hit with like a huge awakening moment where it just hit me, and I'm like, whoa, that wasn't an accident. That happened on purpose, and I'm here on earth to like share with people that they can do anything they set their mind to. As long as they stay motivated until it happens, it's possible. Because I'm a living testimonial of that when it comes to like that accident that I went through. And I, then started calling it happened on purpose. Mm-hmm. And from that moment's kind of where I started shifting to motive and said, this is my purpose. I need to share this to the world, and kind of just went off to the races in entrepreneurship.
I've noticed that seems to be kind of a trend with some of the most successful stories that I've heard. People who've overcome incredible odds is to give purpose to your difficulties, right? Give purpose to your tragedies, even. Yeah. So it sounds like that's what happened. You realize, hey, maybe this is a stepping stone, not a stumbling block.
Yeah.
Right. So what advice would you give to people who think they're staring at a stumbling block? Like, because you took action.
Yeah.
I think from what we're hearing from you, you've been a problem solver for a long time. That's kind of baked into who you are. It probably comes more naturally to some people like you than it might to others. So, what advice would you give somebody who's just staring at that stumbling block, saying, "Hey, this is probably the end for me. I should maybe just plan on being mediocre the rest of my life"?
Well, if you watch Star Wars, I'm gonna say something from Star Wars.
Please.
The obstacle is the way, right? The obstacle is the way. Those stumbling blocks, those things that are in front of you, it's put there for a reason. It's put there because you need to confront it in order to overcome, to achieve what you want to achieve. And so now every time I see like something bad happens, even when it's really bad, like been some things this year that's been like, whoa, like this is a really bad situation. But I have the mindset now, and if you can like just change the mindset, it's a little shift of like realizing like this bad things that are happening is actually good, because eventually a year from now it will be good, right? Like these problems I'm facing now, it's actually going to be the fundamentals that I need for something else in the future. And so when I start thinking about this, every time I run into a problem, I'm like, sucks, but this is worth it. Something down the line is going to make this worth it.
It's just the next step in the journey.
It's just the obstacle that I need to overcome to become a better person, right?
Well, then you develop a habit of,
And then
of seeing those obstacles as opportunities.
Exactly.
That's huge.
The book, I love reading Napoleon Hill. And he says like the biggest opportunity is present within failure, right? And so many people, when they fail, they start getting in their head, emotions come up, and they're like, oh man, I suck, or whatever it is, but opportunity's there. And if you're able to step back and see, okay, I failed, but where's the opportunity? And ask yourself that question, a lot of times you'll find it. That's actually kind of how I got into social media, from that story.
Right, that pivot. That's awesome. So, now you're busy, you're running all these companies and everything. Like, how do you keep it all straight? How do you manage your time? How do you keep things running congruently and cohesively without letting it all fall apart?
Well, let me say this. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Beep it out. Like I don't keep it straight. That's my answer. Like, I have a lot of spinning plates.
Yeah.
And at first, when it was just one business, there's still a lot of things with one business, but with multiple businesses, things are going to fall, things are going to break. So I'm still figuring that out. I'm figuring out how to keep all that. And yeah, that's kind of been my guiding.
And how do you
thought.
find, I mean, it's great when people have that, family support system, right? And it sounds like your family was loving and supportive in some of these situations,
Well,
right?
when I dropped out of school,
Yeah.
they're like, everyone was like, you got to go to college. You have to go to college. Everyone said that. Yeah. And the moment my mom's like, if you don't go to college, you have to support yourself. You have to make your own money, which is good. Like she, made me think about money. So I didn't it's funny. After I became successful, after I started accumulating wealth, now the whole family oh, you did the right decision now. I'm like, I did the right decision now. So it's funny so I didn't have the support from the beginning really that much, but.
Sure. But now you do.
But now I do.
Yeah.
Now I do, yeah.
You remind me of something I just read in a book. I think it was called The Mountain Is You. I wish I could remember the author. But she talked about how fear can kind of paralyze people and keep you from moving on and keep you from accomplishing, the great things that you're capable of. And she made a point, something you just said just reminded me that we tend to think of, very unlikely scenarios, very scary scenarios that kind of paralyze us. But she said one thing overachievers will do, or great achievers will do, is they'll not only consider that scary thing that could happen, but they'll consider their response to it, right? Because some people stop at just at that scary thing that could happen, that kind of paralyzes them, and then they're just kind of at the mercy of that thought, right?
Yeah.
But exercising that ability to kind of imagine and visualize how you would respond to that scary thing. So in other words, you have confidence in your ability to navigate all the nuances of all the challenges that you're going to face as a business owner. You've developed that confidence in yourself, and I think that's a huge takeaway for anyone thinking of operating a business. Is there is no way you can sit down and think of all the iterations of obstacles and challenges you're going to have in your business. You just have to trust that you're going to be able to respond to them and overcome them. If you don't have that, then you're just not going anywhere, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly right. We talked about skateboarding and fear, right? Whenever we're gonna hit
if you're scared, if you're terrified before you try a trick, there's no way you're landing.
There's no way you're landing it, right? When you're about to jump down some stairs and you're thinking about that trick, and sometimes it stops you. Like the fear stops you, and you're like, I'm not gonna do that, right? Like I'm really, really scared. But overcoming it, and then you do it, and then you realize there was nothing to be scared about. Or just by jumping down it and not landing the trick, you go, oh, that wasn't even that scary. I can keep doing this, right?
Or you land it like real close, like maybe on your heels, but you roll and you're like, hey, I've got more confidence now. That wasn't too bad. I can do that.
It's just false evidence appearing real. Fear is not real. It's something that we create in the mind,
Yeah. And I think that's why it's always better to start taking action and like figure out the rest later, right?
Totally.
Like the people that do that, they always outperform. It's just because you kind of overcome that fear early and it doesn't allow it to set in, and you're able to just start making adjustments. Earlier we were talking about momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you are moving some direction, even if it's the wrong direction, you can redirect. You can guide that energy somewhere else. But if you fail to even start, it's really hard to get the ball rolling. Like you gotta start. You can't just sit there and plan. So
where do you see your business in 5 years?
Which one? Champion.
Pick one. See, Champion.
Champion Social, the digital agency.
Yeah.
I see ourselves right now. We have a couple dozen clients in different industries, but in 5 years, I see us having half a dozen clients that are in specific industries that are creating massive impact, more than the ones that we have in a lump sum. And then the rest for the business is going to be focused on my businesses. Like, it's a digital agency for what I create, because I have lots of different business ideas that I want to do in my life, and I'm always going to need a social media marketing team. And we have what I like to think the best social media team, and so I would want to deploy that for my businesses. That's 5 years from now, because I'm not going to be seeking like money, like, because I'm thinking I have all these other businesses that are creating money. I'm gonna be seeking more so impact. Like, what are the 5 companies, 6 companies that are gonna create the most impact? How can I help them? And then build companies as well that my digital agency can support.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, producers are flashing signals at us and saying that we're running out of time, but
it's okay.
Marco, I'm
part of the producers. I'll tell them. It's all
we'll
right.
have you back. We'll have you back.
I'll be behind the scenes.
People are doing a good job. You should bonus them more. Well, we really appreciate you being out here. Like I said, we'll definitely have you back. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Click in the link. Click in our links in bios. Go to social media. Follow the podcast. You won't want to miss the next one. We're going to talk to another great entrepreneur here locally in the Arizona area. Really inspiring stories, and we hope to see you guys soon.
Yeah, so stay tuned. If you're into hearing about people who are creating a massive impact and who have accumulated lots of wealth in their lifetime, you're not going to want to miss the next episode.